Hi everyone, my name is Guru and welcome to the Smoking Clutch. On the Smoking Clutch, you'll find that the content is really unstructured. You'll find a variety of content, all the way from automotive restorations, that is, restoring classic cars, motorcycles, road trips, interviews, and of course, some off roading content as well. In this video, I'll be sharing some off-road tips and tricks for first-time or novice off-roaders. So you just bought a 4x4, maybe because you wanted one all your life, or you fell for this marketing hype and this lifestyle that these brands are trying to sell you. And so you're thinking, hey, I want to go off-road. What are the first things that you need to keep in mind before you do something like that? The first piece of advice I have is take your 4x4 off-road. You will be surprised at how many people have a Jimny or a Thar and they'd never take it off-road. Maybe because it never occurred to them, or they just lack the courage to take that step. Once you've decided to go off-road, the tips that I give you in this video will make sure you have a fantastic time and have a safe experience, not just for you, but for those who are around you as well. Some of the first things that you need to know is off-roading can be dangerous. Yes, there is a risk of getting stuck somewhere. There is the risk of the vehicle getting toppled. In remote areas, there's a risk of wild animals. And of course, the biggest risk of all, which is man. Like even where I am right now, it's completely isolated. But at any point of time, somebody will come and they will take interest in what you're doing just because you're doing something unusual to them. And if they are local to the area, then they're going to try and boss you. They're going to be like, what are you doing? Did you get a permit? Whatever that means. The general rule is don't try to argue with these guys. These guys are embedded. They've been deep-rooted for decades, maybe hundreds of years over there. So they will act like they own the place. So the safest course of action, the best way to deal with these kind of situations is to be humble, play it down, a sort of deference to these guys. Be nice to them, maybe greet them if they come up to you and ask you what you're doing. Just say, hey, we're trying out something new. Most of the time, that kind of dialogue ends up working. Do not engage, do not get aggressive. Whatever be your position in life, however rich you are, don't go out there to the boondocks and try to prove that you're the boss. You will get tulped. Regardless of what you think you know about off-roading, join a club. Join a 4x4 club, your local club, and go with them for a few off-roading sessions, because one, it gives you a community. It's also the safety net of having people to call in case you go somewhere, get into trouble either with the locals or with the terrain. The next big point, and the most crucial one, is don't go alone. It is always good to have a second, ideally a third car with you. In certain situations, a single car is not enough to pull out another one. So it is always better to have at least two cars with you. But worst case scenario, if it's just two vehicles, you should be okay. Just don't do anything too crazy. The next important point is communication. Between you and your co-driver, between you and the other members of your group, the other vehicles that are there with you on that particular off-road adventure, what works is to have open communication. It's good to have walkie-talkies. So let me just show you what we have. So walkie-talkies that most of the guys in my club are these Baofeng's, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, UV5R. They're not too expensive. They're around $2,000, maybe a little less. And I own two of them. And the reason I own two of them is if I have somebody in the car with me, a co-driver, and I need some inputs from them when navigating a tricky bit of terrain, then I will send them out to spot for me. In the car also, you don't have to be the one communicating. It's just them giving you the inputs. So what you can do is you can use this clip here and put it on the seat belt. So it's right here when you're driving. And if you do want to speak, you just take one hand off and press the button and you can speak. So you're not fumbling for it. You don't have to search for the dock to put it back into once you're done communicating. These things are invaluable. The only way, unfortunately, because everyone in our group has these, the only way you can tell yours apart is by putting maybe a different colored retaining strap. Very useful, Baofeng UV 5Rs. Get a pair just for yourself. This point is about paying attention to instructions, particularly when somebody else is spotting for you in the terrain. As a general rule, put your windows down when somebody's trying to give you instructions. And yes, they may be giving you hand signals saying, right hand down or straight or whatever it is. But it's always better to follow their audible instructions as well if they are within range. It's disrespectful to have your windows up. When somebody is spotting, expect them to come and knock on your window and knock some sense into you. Once you're safe, you can always put the air conditioner back on. The next important point I want to talk about is hydration and staying hydrated. Very important to have enough water with you, not just for what you anticipate is going to be the duration of the off-road, but a little bit extra in case there are some unforeseen delays and if somebody else in your group needs some water as well. So keep enough water. It's also good to have maybe some electrolyte. Do not overuse electrolyte, but in moderate doses, particularly extreme heat where you're sweating and losing a lot of salts and salts from your body, pop in an electrolyte. Have two colored bottles. I have a green and I have a red. The red one is the one in which I mix electrolyte, and this is just neat water. It's also good to have snacks with you. Energy bars are probably a great snack to have. If you're somebody who's off sugar, then maybe you can try roasted almonds, peanuts, walnuts, and stuff like that. These nuts are energy dense, and so just a handful of that will keep you going for a long time. The most recommended outdoor wear would be full sleeve t-shirts or shirts. You get specific off-road ones which have ventilation in them. They'll have cutouts on the chest and on the back to allow air circulation. I think Columbia is the brand that makes a really good off-road or outdoor adventure shirts. Full trousers is preferred. I prefer shorts because I sweat a lot. The benefits of protecting myself from brambles and thorns is offset by my discomfort, so I just wear shorts. I wear denim shorts when I go off-road, and shoes. So it's very obvious. Another piece of footwear which I find really useful are these diving shoes. You get these in Decathlon, and they're not very expensive. They're completely porous and they have a tough rubber sole. Where I find this useful is if I have to check the depth of the water, if I have to wade into the water and see how deep it is or whether it's safe. Rather than wearing my tough boots, like my off-road boots, I prefer to wear these because they get wet and they dry equally quickly. Get yourself a pair of these and leave them just under the driver's seat so that you can quickly swap out, remove your socks. Once a sock gets wet when you go off-road, it stays wet till the end of the day. So you do not want that situation. Just get yourself a pair of these. The next thing on the list is to always carry insect repellent. So this is a spray for the car just for mosquitoes and bugs. Also get repellent that you can put on your feet and your arms. And the second thing that you need to always carry is some kind of deodorant. And this is to stop you from killing other people who are with you. Always carry a pair of sunglasses with you. Just driving to the trail and back, you'll have a lot of sun in the morning and more in the afternoon, and that glare is not good for you. In the snow and in the sand, the sunlight just bounces off the surface and into your face. That can really cause a lot of glare. So wear sunglasses when you go off-road. Another way for you to be useful to your team is to be prepared for measuring water depth or wading depth. I just made this bamboo pole. It has a fabric or canvas wrapped handle and it's quite long. This is something that you can use to check how deep the water is, particularly if you own a Jimny, which has a pretty pathetic water wading depth. Another useful piece of kit is this. This is a branch cutter by a brand called Wolfgarten. I bought this on Amazon. It's pretty expensive, but you'll get similar ones at a much more affordable rates. Very useful when you need to clear the path ahead from these tough branches which will really put a dent in your car. This is also extendable, so you can extend the handle and get a lot more leverage when you're trying to cut the bigger branches. Do not use these tools in reserve forests and stuff like that. You'll get into serious trouble. But in private estates or in public trails, use this and get it out of the way so you have a safer way through. I'm just going to walk you through some of the recovery gear that you must have as somebody who's going for the first off-road. The most important piece of kit would be this, a tow rope, which is rated for your vehicle's weight. Jimny is around 1200, 1300 kilos. You could do with a 4-ton rope or a 3-ton rope. I have this 6-ton rope over here because you're not just going to be recovering yourself, you may be recovering other people as well. Both ends of the tow rope, you have something called a shackle. Make sure that the shackle that you buy fits the Jimny. Additionally, you may also carry slightly bigger shackles. It is not just irresponsible, it's also disrespectful to go to an off-road trip without your own recovery equipment. So carry at least a tow rope with shackles. Another useful recovery tool, particularly in sand, is a spade. I have a pretty compact spade here, spade or shovel or whatever you want to call it. In fact, I'm sure these are not the same thing. And this is a really compact foldable shovel. I bought this for not a small sum of money because it was so cool and it came in a American Army branded case and stuff. But that's all it is. Complicated recovery maneuvers and techniques aside, something as simple as a tow rope or a shovel will get the job done most of the time. Typically, when your vehicle gets beached, break this out, clear that earth and sand away from the chassis. That makes sure that your wheels have traction to pull you out and they're not fighting against the weight of the vehicle which is sitting on the obstacle. Pretty useful piece of kit. These are absolute must-haves for first-timers and for pretty much even experienced off-roaders. The first is a tire pressure gauge. Before you enter the trail, the first thing that you're going to do is to air down your tires to a pressure which is suitable for the trail. For example, a Jimny in sand, you would want the tires to be at around 16 to 18 psi. You need to have a gauge, and in this gauge, you also have this release valve. I don't know if you can see it here. This release valve here. So you can check the pressure, press the release valve to get the air out, to deflate essentially, until you reach the pressure that you want. That is one way of checking your pressure and deflating. Another way is to make a custom deflator like this. This end attaches to your valve. At this end you have a pressure gauge and you have a release. Put this on your valve stem, open this to let the air out. When you let the air out and shut it, now you can read the pressure which is remaining in the tires. Let out more air and shut it again. So just let out air, shut it until you reach the required tire pressure. There is another way of doing this which is far cooler. That is a auto deflator. That's something that I use nowadays just because I have a bum back, and crouching down next to the tire for like 5 to 6 minutes is not my cup of tea. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is an auto deflator by a brand called iCheck TPMS. Basically inside this pack you get 4 deflators. These are preset deflators. So you can set each one to a specific PSI, screw it onto your valve stem, and it will automatically start deflating the tire to what setting you have preset. So it comes in a pack of 4. So you have the option of setting 2 of them to 18 psi and 2 of them to 15 psi. That way, depending on how difficult the terrain is, how loose the sand is, you have 2 different settings at the same time. Or just get a couple of these. So you have 4 at 18, 4 at 15 or whatever. And if you have beadlock rims, then you can go even lower. So usually how it works is I put the first deflator on one tire, initiate the deflation, second, third, fourth. And by the time I'm done with the third, actually the first one is finished. After installing the fourth one, I go remove the first one, remove the second one, remove the... So I'm going around the car twice essentially. And I deflate all 4 tires within 3 to 4 minutes. Very quick, very fast, and very accurate, particularly this brand. There are other products as well. I think there's a brand called Stone, and I'm sure ARB and the others have something like this, but this one seemed to have really good ratings, and reviews were really positive. So I went ahead and bought this. So once you're done deflating and you've completed your off-road adventure, you need to re-inflate the tires. It's useful to have a small air compressor like this, which hooks up to your tires, and the other end hooks up to your 12-volt socket in the car. The more heavy-duty versions will have alligator clips that will clip onto the battery. You need to have the car running, hook this up to one tire. Some of them have the ability to preset pressure, and then you start it, and it will cut off automatically when the tire reaches that pressure. Generally, it's okay if you're in the ballpark, just to get to a point where you can leave the trail, head out on the highway, and drive on the highway at speed without too low a tire pressure. Since you're a first timer, don't try to impress anyone. There's usually a lot of peer pressure to, show that you're not a complete idiot off-road. And in the process of doing that, you'll end up proving that you're a complete idiot off-road. So forget peer pressure, resist the temptation to do something wild and stupid. It's okay if you try it too slow and then have to back up and then try the obstacle a second time a little bit faster. Incremental steps till you understand your vehicle, till you understand different types of obstacles, different types of terrain. Particularly if you own a Jimny, the hate is massive, right? Everybody is out to get Jimny owners, and you'll be goaded on. People will say, come on, you can do it. Just don't do it. Drive as slow as possible and as fast as necessary. So spectating or co-driving is a great way to overcome the fear of climbs, drops, sand, slush, rocks, water crossings, jumps, and things like that. You do it a couple of times as a co-driver, and then you're ready as a driver to bring your own vehicle and have a go. So I wanted to make a point about off-road etiquette and how you should welcome. I wanted to add a point about off-road etiquette so that you go to these events with others and you don't come across as a complete jerk. There are a few things to keep in mind. One, follow instructions. You haven't done this before, the others have done it several times. So if there is a set order for the vehicles to go in, make sure you follow that order. If you are, for example, the fourth car or the fifth car, don't cut in front of somebody else just because you have a path or just because they're stuck. You have to wait. Another point is to be proactive, be helpful, get involved in spotting. You'll also learn what are the better lines to take when crossing an obstacle if you are actively involved in spotting. If there is a recovery effort and somebody needs to attach the tow rope and shackles, be there, just run and be the first to do it. Because when it's your turn to get recovered, others will be equally fast and prompt to come and get you out of the mess. One more very, very important point is to carry a small trash bag. Collect your own trash. Do not litter on the trail. If somebody else in your team is littering on the trail, don't make it a mission to go and teach them etiquette. Just pick up the trash, put it in your trash bag, bring it home and dispose it. The last point I want to make before I end this video is, what do you do after a off-road adventure? You obviously need to clean your car, right? It looks a right royal mess. You'll need to go to a car wash and get it completely washed from the underside. Ideally a car wash that has a ramp or a car lift that can lift it up. That way when you are actually washing it, have a good look under the vehicle and see if anything is taken damage during the off-road trip. And also getting it clean each time, it keeps the moisture away. Like leaving wet mud under the vehicle only attracts more water and moisture, and those components which are in contact with it will start rusting very quickly. In the Jimny, if you have the radial arm mount guards, if you have a transfer case guard, a lot of muck ends up sitting on these, between the chassis and these guards. You really need to get in. Ideally, before you put water, use compressed air and blast out all this stuff, and then use water to wash it. Don't pick a car wash that is close to your house. The reason is, if you pick a car wash which is further away, say 5 or 6 kilometers away, after the car wash, you actually have a bit of a drive getting back home. It dries the brakes, it dries a lot of components that would otherwise stay completely wet. If you're just a couple of streets away and you drive back home and park it, everything is just sitting with a film of water on it. That's never a good thing. So that is a tip you probably haven't heard from anybody else. And that's it from me today. I will see you in the next one.